Picture this. You have spent 30 years grinding away at a career, carefully stashing money into your retirement accounts, dreaming about the day you finally get to walk away. And then you hit your early 50s, you do the math, and you think, okay, maybe I actually can do this. So you retire. And within 18 months, you realize that almost everything you believed about what retirement would feel like was completely wrong. Not wrong in a catastrophic way, just wrong in ways nobody warned you about. Today we are talking about what almost everyone gets wrong about retiring after 50, and some of this might genuinely change how you think about your own timeline. Let us start with the number that is living rent-free in your head right now. Whether that number is $800,000 or $1.5 million or $2 million, the retirement industry has been extraordinarily effective at convincing you that there is one magic figure that unlocks your freedom. Hit the number, pull the trigger, ride off into the sunset. Except that is not how it actually works. Here is what matters far more than the number itself, and this is something most people do not figure out until they are already retired. The structure of how your money generates income is what determines how you feel every single morning. You can have the same amount of money sitting in two completely different arrangements, and one will feel terrifying while the other feels completely stable. When your retirement depends on selling assets during a down market to pay your electric bill, every red week on the stock market becomes a personal crisis. But when your income shows up as a predictable, fixed amount every month regardless of what the market did on Tuesday, the anxiety simply does not have the same grip on you. So instead of obsessing over the number, start obsessing over the structure. That is the shift that actually changes your day-to-day experience in retirement. Now here is something the data shows that honestly stopped me cold when I first saw it. Only about 3% of Americans retire between the ages of 50 and 54. 3%. Another 13% retire between 55 and 60. So if you are planning to exit the workforce before your mid-60s, you are not doing what most people do. You are doing something genuinely rare, and that means you cannot just follow conventional retirement wisdom. You have to plan differently because you are playing a longer game. A 30-year retirement and a 40-year retirement are two fundamentally different financial challenges, and using the same withdrawal strategy for both is one of the most common and most costly mistakes people make. Speaking of withdrawal, if you are retiring at 50, the traditional 4% withdrawal rate that most financial planning conversations center around is probably too aggressive for your situation. That rule was designed with a roughly 30-year retirement window in mind. If you are 50 years old and you retire today, you could reasonably be looking at a retirement that spans 40 years or more. That changes the math significantly. And while we are on the topic of numbers, you also need to think hard about health insurance, because Medicare does not kick in until 65. If you leave your job at 52, you have 13 years to bridge that gap on your own. That is not a reason not to retire early, but it is a real cost that needs to be factored into your plan, honestly, not optimistically. Now let us talk about the psychological side of this, because the financial stuff is actually the more straightforward part. What most people get completely wrong is what the experience of retirement itself feels like in the first year. Everyone imagines the freedom. What they do not imagine is the disorientation. When you have spent 3 decades inside a structure where your days had built-in purpose, deadlines, social interaction, and a clear identity tied to what you do, stepping outside of that structure is genuinely jarring. Not painful necessarily, but strange in ways you did not see coming. The friendships that were built around shared circumstances, the colleagues you genuinely liked, the professional network you maintained, a lot of that fades quietly. Not dramatically, not with any conflict, it just slowly stops having the overlap that kept it alive. And the identity piece is real too. When someone asks you what you do at a dinner party, and your answer used to come automatically, suddenly having to rethink that answer can feel unexpectedly destabilizing. The version of yourself that existed inside your career was more central to how you understood yourself than you probably realized. Here is what nobody tells you though. That destabilization is actually the gateway to something better if you let it be. The people who navigate early retirement most successfully are the ones who do not wait for their old life to reshape itself around their new schedule. They actively build new routines, new community, new purpose. They treat retirement not as the end of a chapter but as the beginning of a completely different kind of construction project. And this connects to one of the biggest practical mistakes people make, which is thinking about retirement as a binary choice. You are either fully working or fully retired, nothing in between. That framing is outdated, and it is costing people years of unnecessarily delayed freedom. A huge number of people who struggle badly in full retirement find that working 2 or 3 days a week in something completely different, something lower stakes, something they actually enjoy, solves almost every problem at once. It keeps some income flowing, so your savings are not depleting as fast. It keeps you connected to other people. It gives your days a shape without the crushing weight of a full career. The goal was never to stop doing everything. The goal was to stop doing the things that were draining you on someone else's terms. There is also a timing risk that very few people talk about honestly. Researchers have consistently found that people in their mid-50s report some of the lowest satisfaction levels of any age group, while people in their early 70s report some of the highest. And what separates those two groups is often not the amount of money they have. It is whether they are actually using their time in ways that feel meaningful. Because retirement has phases, whether you plan for it or not. Your early retirement years, your 60s. That is when you are healthy enough to travel, to be active, to genuinely experience the life you saved for. If you spend those years hoarding your money, refusing to touch your nest egg out of pure fear, you will arrive at a point where the money is still there, but your body has fewer options for enjoying it. The real risk of retiring after 50 is not running out of money, though that matters and deserves serious planning. The real risk is being so paralyzed by that fear that you either delay retirement until it is too late to enjoy it, or you retire but live so cautiously that you miss the entire point. People reach the end of their lives and the things they regret are almost never financial. They are the trips not taken, the time not spent with the people they loved, the experiences endlessly deferred to a future version of themselves that did not show up the way they expected. So here is what I want you to walk away with. Retiring after 50 is absolutely possible. It just requires you to think differently than the conventional advice was designed for. Think about income structure, not just the total number. Plan seriously for the healthcare gap. Do not try to replicate your old life in retirement. Build something genuinely new. And stop waiting for a level of certainty that will never fully arrive. The people who retire well are not the ones who had the most money. They are the ones who made a thoughtful decision and then built a life around it.